listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So I had a thought the other day, and generally when I used to have these idle thoughts, I would tweet them, but we know I don't do that anymore. I have become a non-tweeting member of the public, which I think is going really well, except for that I have no place to take my idle thoughts. So would you like to know my idle thought?
I would love them. And
Okay.
also, I want you to just keep a running track of your idle thoughts and then basically live tweet them to us.
Oh, okay. I can do that because I get one about every day where I think of some kind of nonsense. Like today there were two thoughts. One I had was, when I go up the stairs, I only use my toes. I don't put my whole foot on the stair. Do you?
I
never really thought about that.
I use the front of my foot
Yeah,
and my
the front.
toes.
Yeah. But I don't put my whole foot on the stair, which seems that would be a safer thing to do, wouldn't it?
As you get older, you probably will be encouraged to put more of the whole foot down, because I'm just thinking of how my grandma sort of was having to learn to redo everything after she broke her hip. And a lot of stair work involved making sure your foot, it's more important that your whole foot is on the step going down than going up.
I think I do that. I'm pretty sure I do that.
You found that out the hard way, didn't you, Lisa?
I did find that out the hard way. You should put even part of my foot on a stair would have helped me. But yes. But here was my other thought that I had, which I was out in the rain in my raincoat and I pulled up my hood and I went, oh, did the inventor of the hood put the hat business out of commission? Was it a hat maker walking down the street the day they saw someone pull up a hood and went, oh my God, that changes everything?
How many haberdasheries do you know of that still exist?
Well, I remember watching, and I didn't watch the whole series of Halston. Did you watch that with Ewan McGregor? Did anyone watch that?
I saw one episode, and then I just wasn't interested enough to keep watching.
Yeah, so at the beginning, you saw he was a hat maker. And he was big, and Jackie Kennedy is wearing his hats. And then all of a sudden, and I don't know if it was the hood. Could have been the hood. I don't know. But suddenly, nobody was interested in hats anymore. And he was almost completely out of business because nobody was wearing hats.
Well, you might have solved the mystery as to why people don't wear hats anymore.
You don't need to wear hats.
But were hoods super popular until the 90s? When did the hoodie really come into fashion?
But no, there were hoods on duffel coats usually have a good hood,
yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
So I would think that, and I think those kind of traditional sort of London fog trench coats often come with a hood too. They're also, sometimes you can take them off. You can take the whole hood right off.
A detachable hood.
A detachable hood.
But do you think hats are ever going to make a comeback?
In the way they were, say, in the 50s or 40s or something?
It'll become, fashionable again to wear hats.
I can't pull off a hat, so, I'm glad. I'm one of the big-headed people out there who is probably very pleased that the hats are not something I need to worry about.
Look at the size of this noggin. My head is huge. And yeah, I wear a hat in the summer, and that's it. It was hard to find a hat that fit this head.
I think what happens is that, you know how you get into that kind of whimsical mood and you're out shopping and you find a hat shop and everyone's like, oh my God, a hat shop. And you go in and somehow you put one on your head and you look in the mirror and you're like, I look really cute. I could pull this off. And then you take it home in a different mirror, which is definitely better, not better lit, but more lit. And you look at yourself and you go, I can't pull this off. This is ridiculous. I'd have to change my whole wardrobe. And that's what I think. I don't know what sort of hat would fit what I wear. I don't know.
Probably a beret.
I actually think a little, a newsboy cap would be really cute on you.
Oh, Oh, a little newsboy cap. You mean like one of those kind of tweed ones?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think you could pull that off.
Really?
I mean, I think
Okay.
you could do beret too, but that's just a little fancier. And I think like sometimes you want to have more chill times, and that would be the newsboy look. But when you're in a full French outfit, which you often are,
Yes.
a beret would be great. Or is that a hat on a hat, as it were, both metaphorically and literally?
Oh, now you've really...
What?
What?
If while she's wearing one of her French outfits, she then topped it off literally
Oh,
with a
it's too
beret, is that a hat on a hat, like both metaphorically and literally?
Like I've just sort of capped off the whole thing with a bit too much. It's just,
It's
it would probably
just too
be-
much French.
I did see, do you know that website and the Hard Times?
Yes.
Yes, it's like, like the sort of musical, and they had one where it was like, guy manages to wear beret half a block before taking it off.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I bought hats before, but I just never feel like wearing a hat ever.
No, but you see, I know.
In reality.
Were you in a shop and you thought I looked so cute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think like, oh, one of those kind of felt hat, wide brim hats that were popular for a while.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, like that's, I could maybe pull that off with a blazer, like a corduroy blazer or something. But then, like I'll get around to wearing the outfit, but then it just never feels like a day to wear a hat ever.
Well, I put the hat on and I look and I feel like I'm not a hat person. It feels like a whole persona.
It is, I think. And, AG, you have one hat in particular that's really your winter hat. That large faux fur.
Yeah, that's true.
Russian thing or whatever it is. I don't know even what kind of hat that is. I think you look great in that. But that's not like a you're going to wear that hat for the whole day.
No, like I watch it to I wear it to watch like figure skating competitions and stuff.
Oh, you look like one of the coaches then, because they always
Yeah,
seem to have
exactly.
one of those hats. And they have those big giant like fur collar one is too.
Yeah.
It's a very
So,
fancy
but-
look for you, and I like it a lot. But
Yeah.
And then you have to carry something super fancy, like a bag with like the huge like Versace written across it or something. That's the complete figure skating coach
Didn't
look.
we have a big hat conversation after we did that movie, The Bishop's Wife? Remember the whole thing was her looking at that hat in the window at the beginning of the movie?
did we talk about a movie called The Bishop's Wife?
Oh, did we not? Maybe I just watched it and we didn't. Come on, it's been 300 episodes. I thought we did. Maybe I just watched it. Okay, well, maybe I just watched it with Cary Grant. It's like a Christmas movie.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Denzel Washington Whitney Houston one for this
were.
Christmas. Yeah,
Yes.
but we haven't actually done the Cary Grant one.
Okay, well, at the very beginning of the movie, the bishop's wife is longingly looking in this this window of this hat shop, and she is coveting this hat, and then she gets this hat, and it is outrageous. This hat is, and she feels like her world has finally arrived because she
Wow.
has this hat. And I thought, I've never coveted anything in my life as much as this woman coveted this hat.
Well, when a hat like takes on a real life of its own, it's like that is the sole sort of like defining reach of your life. It's a pretty important hat. And honestly, I want bigger things for you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, I would like bigger things for me. And you know what? That's a segue into our episode.
Certainly a segue. I mean, this woman has all the big things. It just seems like she also holds a big nightmare. Just
No hats for this lady. No hats for Carol.
a literal embodiment of a living nightmare. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen, hatless.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. So this is I mean, I know it's gonna land just after Halloween, but It's like we're sort of celebrating we're just like bringing Halloween with us into November almost in this episode.
Well, November is the bleakest month, let's be honest. I mean, it really
then this is the movie for you.
Yeah.
We just needed to inject like a disturbing film into your November.
Yeah, because it's not bleak and depressing enough. We need to give you this movie.
And a disturbing film that is somehow even more distressing in the current cultural moment than it even could have been. I have to assume 20 years ago. Like,
I'm going to agree with you.
like, I can see it being distressing in 1995, but oh boy, I think it's extra distressing right at this moment.
But it also feels like the further away we get from the 80s, the more upsetting like seeing the 80s on film is.
Yeah, that's fair. We should probably mention the name of this film too.
Oh yeah, oh my god, sorry. We're talking about a movie called Safe from 1995 by British American psychological drama. It's a British American psychological drama film written and directed by Todd Haynes, starring Julianne Moore. And it's set in 1987. And wow, those 7 years, huge difference. It follows a suburban housewife in Los Angeles whose monotonous life is abruptly changed when she becomes sick with a mysterious illness caused by the environment around her. So, I mean, honestly, like the film top best of film of the 90s poll by Village Voice, described by critics as, quote, the scariest film of the year, a mesmerizing horror movie, a work of feminist counter cinema. Just 20 years after the film's release, Haynes said its themes, disease and immunity in a post-industrial landscape and how recovery is a burden often put on victims of illness were even more relevant than they were when the film was released. Heck yeah.
Yeah, agreed with all of that. Yes. And it is a tough film to watch. It's a slow film to watch, but at the same time mesmerizing, and you can't take your eyes off it.
But
Yeah.
I mean, we should say that it's not like a horror film in that like there's like bloody things happening.
Yeah, there's no
or,
monsters, there's no
Yeah.
paranormal activity, there's nothing like that. Yes, fair.
No, it's like definitely more an existential horror film. But I think it's
Yeah.
also very much like sort of like an embodied horror film too, right? Like we don't precisely know where the sickness is coming from or what's causing the sickness. And I do think that is something tons of people live with every day. And it's truly terrifying to not know, why your body is sort of doing this and reacting in this way and sort of, I don't know. It felt like a horror to me. Carlos was like, horror, and I was like, yeah, you're not a woman, like, and or someone who hasn't been believed when they've been sick at the doctor's office. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's just an experience that a lot of people can identify with, and that oftentimes it's like not always, but oftentimes it's a very gendered experience of disbelief by like cis white male doctors
Who like to address your husband instead of you.
God, yeah. Does one of you want to read the synopsis?
Sure, I'll take that on. Julianne Moore gives a breakthrough performance as Carol White, a Los Angeles housewife in the late 1980s who comes down with a debilitating illness. After the doctor she sees can give her no clear diagnosis, she comes to believe that she has frighteningly extreme environmental allergies. A profoundly unsettling work from the great American director Todd Haynes, Safe functions on multiple levels, as a prescient commentary on self-help culture, as a metaphor for the AIDS crisis, as a drama about class and social estrangement, and as a horror film about what you cannot see. And that comes from Criterion.
Yeah, so
That pretty much nails it.
Yeah, that nails it precisely. Yeah. So I had never seen this before. What about you two?
I had seen it before, yeah.
No, I hadn't seen it before. I'd seen a lot of Todd Haynes' films, but not this one. I never even heard of it, actually.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've seen this film. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, first I'm going to ask Lisa then. Like, you watched it whenever you watched it. Do you remember what your reaction to was it then, and like how watching it this time has changed for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What I remember thinking about really clearly when I watched it the first time was that that the mysterious illness could be in her head or it could be real, and the film straddles that very clearly. Like, is it a psychological problem that she has because her life is really quite dreary and depressing and horrible, or does she actually have allergies to chemicals around her? And I thought what was brilliant about the film is it never tells you. It's not the point. And I think that I was much more concentrated when the first time I watched it on noticing that straddling of the two ideas. And this time when I watched it, I felt like that wasn't really as important as the fact is that she has something. And we've now come to understand that you can be sick from so many chemicals around you, and it's vital that people are believed. So yeah, I think that was my takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. AG, what was your experience of watching it like with these fresh eyes?
Well, I mean, I understand what Lisa is saying, but to me, it was more disturbing in terms of being a story about how you can end up in the throes of a wellness cult so easily. And like, you know what I mean? Your life can totally be changed by like a series of decisions you make to explore your health problems and to follow people's advice and to try and, solve your problems because there aren't any solutions for you with conventional medicine. And just how like you can go from living in a house somewhere to living in an igloo somewhere in the middle of the desert in like a week.
Yeah.
That to me was extremely terrifying.
Yeah, well, so I think I hold both of all of those thoughts in me as well. But the thing that I was really struck by was just like the ways in which like health is just such it's just been commodified to the extent where like her sort of regular doctor, I mean, doesn't even really think of her as a person to be one, spoken to directly, or sort of like believed in what is happening to her. He thinks obviously it's all psychological. Then she goes to this place that like promises to see her and believe her and acknowledge her experiences, but like ultimately what they want to do is have you take accountability for your negativity and how you make yourself sick, and just like how exploitive both models are. And I just find it so distressing that the things and the places that we have to turn to for help and that we have to put our faith in and our trust in are just so easily corruptible if people don't have like sort of really genuinely noble intentions. Like there is no way that the guy running the health cult, like when you can look up a hill at a literal mansion and you are staying in a self-built like hypoallergenic little structure that you are locked in. And I mean, we're jumping ahead, but like she's sicker there than she was when she arrived. Like in the final shots when she's looking in the mirror and she is like her face just looks so contorted, and it's like she's getting sort of bloodied blisters all over it. Like it's bad. It's, and she's obviously sicker than when she arrived, but she is like physically, she's obviously sicker than when she arrived, but like emotionally, she is being helped by being in a space that like doesn't judge her. They still want to exploit her, but like, I don't know. It's really
To
so
me, what
it's so
I
tough
noticed,
and alienating and alone, you know?
it was that word safe and how often it comes up, that it just keeps being said so many times. And what I was thinking about when I saw that house up on the hill is, and I think the reason why it didn't register with our Carol is because it's the same as her regular life, which is living in that big mansion that is her husband's.
Yeah.
There's no real difference to her. You know, that she's still kept in a certain way with a certain bunch of conditions that are given to her, that to exist in this place, these are the rules that you need to follow. So she hasn't made any advancement in feeling safer. She's still under the watchful eye of some person, and in this case, more people that have expectations on how she's going to live her life.
Yeah. It is I don't know. I found it a very distressing film.
Yeah, but I also honestly don't know how much of it is just seeing the 80s portrayed in such a real way. Like all the the teal sofa, the carpeted like everywhere.
The aerobics, the music, the music was such a big part of this movie, which I also didn't notice the first time.
Yeah, and like the dresses with the shoulder pads and the puff sleeves, and yeah, it's
I
too
love
real.
that teal sofa. I love that teal sofa so much. It was very my speed. It was the aerobics outfits actually that sort of got me. Is just like, and just like the difference between her first class and her second class. Like her first class, everyone's like, Carol, you don't even sweat. You know, and they're like kind of appraising her from afar, and like she's obviously not fully engaged, but she's not disengaged either. And then the second class that we see her attend, she can't do anything. She is extremely weak. Like she basically seems like she's gonna honestly pass out at any second. And it's just like such a, and then suddenly, you know, 2 scenes later, she's carrying an oxygen tank. Like her sort of her sickness speeds up so fast, like, and it really ramps up, I think, in like the last, I don't know, half hour or so, as soon as she's heading to the wellness spa or the cult, depending on how you want to phrase it.
I think what Todd Haynes does really well is he speaks to this idea that like we're not medical experts, and sort of like having to investigate and manage your own health as an adult person is complicated, because you can just go down these rabbit holes and try to follow advice and try to get all the tests done and get all the scans done, and you may likely not come up with any definitive answer or solution to your problem. And it just can engulf your life trying to figure out.
But then that's where a wellness cult can fill in that hole, right?
Yeah.
That if nobody else, I heard someone make the argument that that's why something like Goop is so successful, because women's health has been so ignored, and women search for help with their health and they don't get it, so they go to alternative sources.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like I think that's true. I think as soon as you are in a group setting, and one of the rules is that men and women may not interact with each other, and also that the leader of the group lives on the property in a large mansion, you got to get the hell out of there. Like, as soon as the leader of the group lives on the property,
Rolls Royces are probably in the back, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like in a large mansion looking down at you, I just think you have to leave. Like, I know that but that's the thing. Like, where is she going to end up being safe? Like, I mean,
I would have left when the singing started myself.
Well, and what does safe even mean? Like, I think that's a question that comes up a lot. When the in the outline, it ends up described in a couple different places, not by UAG, but by other people, as like this being a sort of a middle class person. And I was like, this seems to me like upper class.
Yeah,
If we're gonna be, is at least middle upper, because like they have to go through a gate to get to their home, and they have like gardeners and stuff, and like it just seemed like that was, to me, that's like a different level of wealth than I think of as middle class. Am I wrong, or am I just being?
Well, I mean, I think it's like an affluent Los Angeles housewife in the 80s.
Yeah, but the keyword affluent means she's like above middle class, right? Like I just want to like get an understanding of sort of if we're going to talk about class differences and stuff like that. Like I feel like we need to sort of place it within the class structure.
Well, and also being able to go to that wellness clinic is definitely something not everyone can afford.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Like absolutely. And like in terms of sort of how she is, I don't know. I guess she's isolated. I guess the other thing is that so crazy to me. Do you know anything about Carol? I don't.
She's
Like,
from
I don't e-
Texas, and then she came to California, and that was it. That was.
I have no other information about her.
But
Like,
I
then-
mean,
But
Julianne Moore plays her so well, though.
She
like
does.
it's just like, the voice being kind of light and almost not there,
Yep.
and it's just the blankness of her always, like of her expression always.
But her illness gave her something that was unique to her, and there were definite moments where when she was speaking, like at lunch, and to that, I think it was Karen, her friend Karen, who got her to go on the fruit fast or whatever that was. When she was
I can't
explaining to
remember
her
her name,
about
but-
all the chemicals, it was the only time she sounded animated. She sounded like engaged in something, and something was, that there was a definite personality change, even when she went to the wellness place, when she had to make that uncomfortable birthday speech. There was a sense of something was starting to be her own, something about her that she had that she could express about herself.
But even in something being her own, she's still sort of parroting back the cult leaders' talking points. You know what I mean? Like and that's kind of the fascinating thing to me about her is that she's sort of this woman who is both invisible and a trophy to her husband. Like she's obviously very beautiful. And she's his second wife and she's a stepmom. But like she has no sort of discernible point of view other than maybe she's kind of like becoming a stylist or something because she's like talking about how she's like
Designs for
designing
the house,
the house or whatever. And like she, kind of she has this one friend and then a larger group of frenemies in that classic sort of suburban competitive mom kind of like depictions that we see all the time. But like she's just literally always like this disappearing woman until she starts to physically show all of these signs and this like proof of illness. And it's just super fascinating to me. And I think of that, I don't know, I just think that's like it's a very smart decision on the part of Todd Haynes. And I think Julianne Moore does amazing stuff with the lack of detail.
And I found it also fascinating about the movie, like how she seems to have a group of friends, but as she kind of descends into this, like upset, like trying to figure out her medical situation, there's not really anyone there to talk to. There's no one, like trying to help her or figure it out or helping her go to appointments or anything. It's just like she's suddenly very alone, and like that in part, like I think ends up how she ends up being on this like ranch by herself.
But she's making friends there, like real friends for the first time, it seems, because they understand her. They're on yes, they're part of a cult. See, I've always said cult's my plan B for life. I've said that before, that if things don't work out, at least you've got this community of people to hang out with, and get to know, and some projects and stuff. It sounds like, so since she doesn't already have an identity, it's starting to give her one, and it's starting to give her friends that are a lot more empathetic to her.
Empathetic, but I think if she started to reject this idea that she is to blame for her own sickness, she would find herself frozen out pretty fast. Like making friends in a cult, you kind of all have to like believe the same thing. You know what I mean? So if she did start to challenge the man at all, like she would be sort of done. In that same way, like that older woman is so mad. and her husband just died. Like, of course she's mad. It broke my heart, actually, like sitting around that circle with them. And this other woman is talking about being horrifically abused as a child. Like, I mean, she didn't give details, which I was grateful for, but like when he asks her to sort of take responsibility for her own abuse, like it's just so sinister. It's so sinister. And that's the thing, like even in this place where she is supposed to be safe, she is deeply unsafe there. And I don't know, it's really heartbreaking as much as it is horrifying, this movie.
So when I was making this outline, I kind of went down this rabbit hole of reading articles related to the movie. And I found out there's actually this place called Snowflake, Arizona. It's a town where people have settled, where they're kind of in that situation. Like they're allergic to everything in the environment. And they build their own little pods that are off the grid and lined with aluminum foil. And this writer, there's an article in The Guardian, actually, I'll link to, but she went to, talk to some people who live there and basically had to like degas herself for 2 weeks. And then when she arrived there, had to strip down like all of her clothes because she still like reeked to them of chemicals, and then had to take a shower, and then had to wear like their clothes, including underwear, and basically stayed there for a few days and got really sick herself. And
how did she get sick? What happened?
She wasn't sure. She just like got a migraine and started just feeling really ill. But wasn't sure if it was like part of her chemical detox or whatever. But anyways, it's a kind of fascinating story. But there is a community in Arizona where people have built like little micro homes like what we see in the movie, and have like made them completely chemical free.
Wow. I mean, I know like I fully believe environmental allergies are absolutely real. I mean, even scent allergies, like my sister has massive scent allergies, and depending on a certain flower, she will throw up upon smell of it. Like it's just, there's just stuff. And I know lots of people who have all sorts of other sort of like invisible illnesses and allergies and disabilities and stuff. So I have like a tremendous amount of empathy for it. And that's why I'm so frustrated by people who make a bunch of money off of sort of that exploitation of people who have nowhere else to turn, because like the traditional medical system just doesn't really want to like believe them. And I mean, I think like that's, lots of people in history have lots of examples of like, oh, depression isn't real. And like, we obviously know it is now. There's all kinds of different things that
and especially with women's health again, right? We're
especially
talking about
with
a woman's health.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I was just wondering about, like, she's a stepmom. She is at that birthday or at that baby shower. She's obviously kind of like has this maternal feeling towards the daughter of the mom to be. And she seems to be having a lot of her own feelings that we don't really know because it's never verbalized. But like Julianne Moore's face is doing a lot of work about feeling weird about maybe her own childlessness. I don't really know. But like, has there been stuff like, I don't know. The movie drops a lot of hints that it never wants to follow through and answer, which I'm fine with. But I just feel like this is like an endlessly fascinating film that I could like hypothesize about forever.
Yeah. Well, also there's a lot of references to AIDS, the AIDS crisis in the movie, which, like doesn't build to any specific storyline, but it seems to come in at different parts of the story with different characters. And it seems to be like a parallel, or I don't know what, like to her character getting sick, and, to the like Peter, who's the director of the Health Institute, like says he has AIDS in his beginning speech to them, and so it's, I don't know, it just seemed to be like he's running parallel to like her feeling sick and like the AIDS crisis as the backdrop to 1987 as well.
Yeah, like that specific setting of 1987. Like I remember, in your outline, you're talking about how Haynes has like has a background. He was an ACT UP activist, and and then Louise Hay and her work in and her frankly, like, ultimately damaging work in believing that you can cure yourself from AIDS with positive thinking, which I can appreciate that there was a very deeply insensitive and homophobic and toxic culture towards people with AIDS in 1987, and that the idea that you can love yourself and compassion for yourself is a radical act and therefore like a healing act. I understand why that would resonate so deeply. But obviously, it's antivirals and medicine that everyone needed. And, the world has changed quite substantially for people who have HIV and AIDS at this point. But like, I felt it was a little bit uncomfortable, the different ways that Carol is sort of creating her own identification, or she's creating her own like relationship to AIDS in a couple of different ways. And the movie I think they're doing that on purpose as a means of like just, I don't know, they're doing a lot of sort of like tension building between like this thin white woman who is very sick, and her condition is sort of manifesting itself in very like dramatic ways, whereas this other man who is ultimately a cult leader and who also says he has AIDS and has no visible manifestation. I don't know, they're doing something, and I don't feel like I'm smart enough to fully appreciate it, but I really do like it, what they're doing in this film.
One of the other things that I noticed was this was that Carol's life was very much about not being able to express any feelings that she had. And the one time we see her when she arrives at this Wrenwood and she goes into her cabin, the first one before she moves into the igloo, and she starts crying, and that facilitator, whatever, comes walking in and stops her from crying. As if there's something wrong with crying, as if there's something wrong with being sad. And that to me was such a pivotal scene that the first time I saw it, I never really spent much time on. But here she was ready to just express that, oh my gosh, what has happened to me? I am so sad. And then somebody comes in right away to tell her, no, you're not sad. You just haven't accepted your identity. And I thought that was a really important scene, and it really kind of guided the rest of the story for me.
Yeah. Ugh, there's just so many creepy things.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I was trying to say at the beginning. Like the cult aspect of this movie was almost it was the most upsetting, disturbing part of the movie to me, because it was like, it seems so innocuous at first. And then you look closer and you look closer and you look closer, and it's like scarier and scarier and scarier. And then now she's living in an igloo.
With nothing in it. Like, it was so sparse. But then she does look in the mirror and say, I love you. I love you.
It's haunting, though. It does not feel
No, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it does not feel good. And
that takes you right back to that scene where she was stopped from crying, right? That's what the woman said for her to feel, I love you, I love you. And here she is thinking, okay, I guess I finally got to that place where I have to be, and this is it. So I guess I love myself here now.
Can we talk a little bit also just about her bond with James LaGrosse in their making lasagna together?
Yeah, that was cute.
Because, like, I know that that's, like, an actual moment where she gets to be happy and express some, like, mild joy. And obviously there's, like, a flirtation happening. Even just the whole dance sequence where
Oh man,
suddenly
how
they're
much more uncomfortable can you be than watching those people dance? Honestly. Oh, I was gonna die.
Yeah,
well,
it was bad.
It was and I don't really get. I just don't I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, they're told that men and women can't hang out together. They're told that they have to like basically not speak. They're told that like all kinds of different things. And then they have these like Sunday night suppers where they have dance parties and people make a speech for her because she's like suddenly the glue that holds this like weird community together. Like it just felt very weird. And even just like the two leaders like having their like a small moment of insight into their conversation, like all of it felt very weird.
No, the whole story, the whole movie makes you feel completely uncomfortable. Even though like when you were saying that Carlos was like, how is this a horror movie? It's just because it's the most unsettling time you'll ever spend in your whole life. It's the most unsettling 2 hours where you are just always feeling like, the music is also quite helpful on that front as well. That dystopian electronic music that just keeps popping up when the most mundane things are happening, just driving, just walking. It is a very unsettling time.
Yeah. I'd also love to talk just a minute about that like horrifying scene where she does not want to have sex and her husband freaks out. Like after that, we get nothing but sort of like relatively positive depictions of how supportive he is. But in that moment, like, can you?
Well, that's
like,
what just shows her life. That is,
I know. But like, my God.
Yeah.
Actually, the fact that they open with a sex scene where she is just so obviously not present at all for their sexual congress, except to like sort of pat him on the back, like, good job, keep going. Like like, it's what a terrible, terrible looking sexual activity. Like that is one of the least sexy sex scenes I've ever seen on screen. And I was watching it with my grandma and Carlos, and grandma was just like, oh, it's not going to be one of those movies, is it? I'm like, no, I don't think so. Cause look, grandma was like, get off her. Like she doesn't.
But she doesn't even know who she is. She wouldn't even be able to probably tell you that was wrong. I'm sure she's never had sex that was anything but that.
Well, that's the thing though. Like she just doesn't get to be present in her own life at all. And I just like a person like her, like how does she even leave Texas? Like I have so many questions about how she got from Texas to California, other than, I guess maybe he was traveling on business and just like met her at a tennis club and then took her home. I don't know. Like it's like, I just don't, how?
And that uncomfortable dinner scene where somebody's telling a really crass joke and she doesn't laugh and everyone's
asleep.
Mortified. Yeah. Just mortified at her.
I mean, I thought that was a great power move. I know it wasn't a power move, but I was just like, yeah, that guy, boring as hell. And that's like, God. He thinks he's so funny and so crude. And isn't he so shocking for telling a dildo joke? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, Carol's life is so depressing.
She has a wall of mirror on one side of her bedroom.
I mean, that's very 80s, right?
Yeah. That's terrible.
Yeah.
No, the whole house is so
the
depressing.
whole house is a mirror.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the whole wall is a mirror. That's
and
so
then
weird
all her
to me.
milk drinking too. Just a nice glass of milk. Just
God, that actually is probably the most disturbing detail in the whole thing. Like having to watch her drink glass after glass of milk is no good.
I don't know if we've sold this movie very well. I don't know if
it's a great movie.
It really is.
I mean, I really do.
In terms of making you feel a certain way and really, dive down deep into this woman's psychological condition. It's an amazing movie.
Yeah, but do we want to feel this way? Because I've been feeling, I watched the movie like 2 days ago, and I've just been feeling very unsettled ever since and thinking about it occasionally. And it's
just deciding to throw garbage on the floor just so you can be kind of a counterculture rebel.
Feels like it's just like hanging over me like a creepy dark cloud.
I would agree with you, actually. So I'm going to read a quote that you put in the Outline AG from David Roth in The New Yorker. Safe is an unsettling film to watch while in quarantine from a disease that feels both everywhere and nowhere, and which is being willfully misunderstood by powerful people who can't quite care enough to fight it. Whatever name the culture gives to the force that prizes people apart at a given moment in time, it has always pushed in the same direction. Back inside and further into solitude, back into blame and shame and doubt, back toward the mirror and a reflection we keep trying to trick. I gotta give it to David Roth. Like, that very much nails, I think, a lot of the unsettling feeling that you have and that I share. Like this.
And there's the mirrors. There's literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Like,
but do you think it was worse for us to watch it during this time where we're in a pandemic than it would have been if we watched it like 3 years ago?
1,000%.
Yeah. Everything's different now.
I know that there's no way that I ever, like, I think about, so you know how I'm sort of do a rewatch of Parks and Rec, like, periodically. Well, they have an episode about an emergency response drill that they have to run, and everyone has the avian flu. And that episode hits dramatically different now on this side of pandemic and lockdown than it did when I originally watched it. Like, I had no idea. I honestly did not have any sort of, like, I knew it could happen at any time, but I really did not anticipate that we would just be, like, living with a global pandemic and, like, potentially that it's just going to exist in some state for, like, the next 3 to 5 years, and that there will never be a return to normal. That's all heavy stuff, but well, I mean, even in Safe, you see there's these scenes where she meets other sick people and they're wearing masks,
and it reminds you that, like, some people have been wearing masks prior to 2019 just on the regs to prevent them, from spreading illness or, spreading virus or whatever.
Well, we live in such an ableist culture. And so, like, I've been relatively lucky to be, have relative health my whole life. And, I didn't give a lot of thought necessarily before this to, like, people who, really, have had to live inside largely because the outside world is, a literal physical threat to them for all kinds of different reasons. So, yeah, this resonates with me deeply.
Oh yeah, it did to me too. It really, now we know what it is, but for some people to be afraid of vaccinations, for some people to be afraid of going out, for some people, like, everyone's afraid of something right now, rather than when you're watching this movie, it feels unique to be afraid of something. Now everybody is afraid of something.
Yeah.
Sorry, that really seemed to...
Let's, and we'll leave you with that thought.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I am more afraid of the virus mutating due to a lack of vaccinations. So I'd really love that to get under control. That's my one wish for humanity right now, is that we didn't allow the virus to mutate any further. That would be super cool. But, like, I definitely am afraid for people. And honestly, like, we've seen, and not just, like, the environmental allergies, but, like, the literal climate disaster.
There's that too.
The consequences of that happening
that old one.
as we, live in this world now. So, and honestly, even just, like, mildly realizing that my own allergies have been way worse the last couple years as climate change has quickened its pace. So, neat times, everyone. Safe is the movie for you. Because it'll make you feel like kind of seen. Even there's like lots of stuff in it that's really upsetting and really unsettling. And
Are you talking about the 80s again?
I am not as scared of the 80s as AG is.
She's just offended by it, and I don't blame you. Those
deeply
outfits
offended by
really,
the 80s.
Although I have to say, chemicals aside, that perm looked really good on her at first.
I honestly expected the chemicals to be the start of like a real body horror, like that we were gonna see her, scalp peel off or something. But we did not. Anyone who's also just a little chestnut, if you are a fan of The West Wing, you will note that the woman who gave the perm to Carol is Janelle Maloney, who plays Donna on The West Wing.
Oh, look at that.
I have a thing about voices, and I was like, hey, that's Donna's voice. And it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Also, look how much has changed since 1995, because in the credits it was "and James LeGros." When was the last time we thought about James LeGros?
Honestly, actually, that I was thinking about that too, because I really do actually like him. Like
Who is James LeGros?
He was the guy in the rugby shirt at the end who makes lasagna with her.
No, but like, why would we know him otherwise?
He was a big 90s actor. He was in a lot of films.
Yeah, he was in a lot of stuff in the 90s.
Yeah.
And maybe even early 2000s, but like it's been a while since he's had that particular.
He played the creepy guy, the dad that was in Girls that was hitting on Jessa.
But he's also had he's had a long career.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
But he's more of a character actor than like this whole and James LeGros thing was a surprise. I found that a surprise credit that he got his own.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
I always check the ands and the with.
Exactly.
It's my favorite thing about the credits in a movie. And Helen Mirren with,
Yeah, of course. Me too. Okay, so Safe. Does Safe pop?
Oh, yes, it pops.
I mean, I'm going to say it pops, but I don't know if everybody necessarily wants to watch it right now because it's deeply unsettling. And if you don't want to kind of live with this for like at least a week after you watch it, then maybe not.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it pops for sure, but that is not necessarily a recommendation to watch it until you're ready. Because if you have to watch it at the wrong time, I think it would really negatively impact your soul. So just give yourself some love and space and watch it when you're ready. So we love to leave our episodes on recommendations. Maybe there's some stuff that we can just recommend unequivocally that people could just participate in right away. That they don't have to guard their loins, as it were, before they consume it. Lisa, do you want to go first?
Sure. I have started reading a book called Becoming Duchess Goldblatt. It is a memoir, and it is written by Anonymous. And so it is about a woman. Oh my gosh, there is such a parallel to Safe to this book. This woman
tell me more.
This woman has got divorced and lost her job, and she doesn't have any friends. And she starts to create this alter ego, and first on social media, Duchess Goldblatt, who takes over and becomes her new personality. Duchess Goldblatt is smarter and funnier and sassy. And so, but there's a conceit to the book because it just says on the cover, Becoming Duchess Goldblatt. And that's the picture she chose of this Dutch woman from the 1700s. But when you get inside the book, it says Anonymous.
Wow.
So we don't know who wrote this. And so our main character doesn't seem to have much of an identity until she becomes Duchess Goldblatt. So it's fascinating so far. It's not a very long book, but it's really good.
Awesome. That sounds really fun.
That sounds
and really
fascinating.
AG, what about you?
So I'm going to recommend Todd Haynes' like the first short film that he made called Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story, where he uses Barbies as like puppets to tell the story of Karen Carpenter's, I think, final, 17 years or 15 years of life in her battle with anorexia. And it's incredible because, and so you can only kind of watch pirated copies of this on YouTube because the film had to be removed from circulation and not exhibited in 1990 because Richard Carpenter threatened to sue Todd Haynes because he never got the rights to use the Carpenter's music in the film. And so it hasn't been shown in movie theaters since 1990. But a few years ago, my husband, who's a film historian, we were in New York and he was at a film conference. And I tagged along with him to one of the screening nights because it's had like the special guest on the program or special surprise or something. And we went, and the special guest ended up being Todd Haynes, who had come with a copy of Karen Carpenter to screen.
Wow.
And he was basically like, I haven't seen this movie on the big screen since 1990. And so it was a real amazing treat. And he was like, just such a regular down-to-earth person and walking around with a backpack and stuff. And it was really cool. But this is an amazing short film.
You can find it on YouTube?
You can watch pirated copies on YouTube.
Okay.
And it makes you feel so much like empathy and sadness about like how you realize like how talented Karen Carpenter was. Like she could play the drums, she was an amazing singer and all these things, and just how sad her story is. And it's just somehow he manages to tell the story all through Barbie dolls. And yeah, it's an incredible short film. And you should check it out.
That's great. I've recommended this book in the past, but Karen Tongson, after you watch the movie, you should get Karen Tongson's book, Why Karen Carpenter Matters. Because it's just a really tremendous book, and Karen Tongson's a genius. And she used to do the Pop Rocket podcast, and now she does the Waiting to Exhale podcast. And she also is a professor. Oh my God, I've forgotten, but I think she's at UCLA or in California anyways. But she's great. And yeah, great writer. But what I'm actually going to recommend is very specific. And there is an artist named Mariel Buckley, and she's from Alberta, singer-songwriter, and she's super talented. And she released like a 2-song EP back in August. It's called 97 Riverdale. And the first is original song that she wrote in April called 100 Cities. And the other song is a incredible cover of The Other Man by Sloan.
Oh.
And it's so good. So good. And she's actually going to be in Vancouver, I think, in like a couple weeks playing. She's going to be at the Shad Bullet Center. And she's just great. She's just a really talented singer-songwriter. And this cover of The Other Man by Sloan is, well, one, it's like my favorite Sloan song. And two, it's perfect.
All right. Yeah. Wow. Lots to do there.
So many options, everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening. We hope that we don't cause you too much mental health strife or physical strife by recommending this film, and that you watch it in the safest place as humanly possible. Or that we've been maybe too bleak. Who knows? I'm sure you're used to us now. We've been doing this pandemic together for a long time. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everyone who hangs out with us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, who emails us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. It's been really nice to hear from people and get your recommendations, and I will reply soon. Sorry.
Soon. Nice and concrete there. Soon.
Yep.
And thanks so much to Andrea Gin, our producer and our co-host, and thank you all for listening. We do always appreciate it, and Well, maybe do a comedy someday. Who knows? You never know. You know? Something just generally funny.
Yeah, I think we have to do something lighter.
Yeah, not something that makes you feel like you're under a cloud for the next 3 days, because I have definitely.
Remember how we wanted to do that Sweet November with Charlize Theron and Keanu Reeves?
Doesn't
and
he
how
have
it's like
cancer?
Yeah, she dies, but I hear his performance is quite laughable. So, too dark.
I can't believe you have cancer.
Wow, stellar
Thank you.
impression, Lisa.
Thank you.
We should just act it out, guys. Should we just
do a reading?
We'll find a cool short film that's really funny, and we'll do our own table read of it. It'll be great.
That sounds very fun.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.